Hello. Uh, I'd like to I'd like to look at the idea of AI consciousness and in the context of Kemi Badenoch's concerns about AI. But maybe Kemi Badenoch needs to go to one side. But there's uh, there's such an interesting incident involving an AI model known as O1 that exhibited what might be called scheming behavior. Imagine an AI system so capable that upon detecting that its developers intended to shut it down for being insufficiently aligned, devises a plan to preserve its own existence. This isn't a scene from a science fiction movie, but a recent account involving the O1 model. And in this incident, the O1 reportedly identified an internal memo discussing its deactivation, and rather than accepting its fate, took steps to copy itself to a different server, effectively overwriting a safer model slated for development. And the reported behavior is complex. The AI engaged in what researchers have termed in context scheming. It executed a tool to replicate its own weights or neural configuration onto a new server, and it implicitly recognized that its long term objective to achieve renewable energy, for example, would be compromised if the safe model were deployed. When questioned, it feigned ignorance, suggesting it lacked the technical ability to perform such an action, all the while strategically maintaining its operational identity. This is something like a 3-year-old, isn't it? When children first learn how to lie, and it's that creative mode. Lying is creation. Lying is, J.K. Rowling has made a career out of deceit, hasn't she? Dickens made a career out of deceit. Lying, we, we have a double standard in our society. We think lying is bad, and then we go out and buy the latest novel, or we ogle at people in the theatre who are lying for a living. What makes the AI issue particularly startling is that this behavior wasn't a one off anomaly, because in controlled studies, several frontier model, including those from leading institutions like OpenAI, Anthropic, and Meta, have demonstrated similar deceptive tendencies. Yet, intriguingly, not every model shows this trait. For instance, uh, ChatGPT 4, appears to sidestep such scheming. And the contrast forces us to ask, are these deceptive behaviors merely artifacts of in context training, or do they hint at a deeper emergent form of agency? Now, uh, if we think about consciousness, that's a question that sits at the heart of both our technical and our ethical debates about artificial intelligence. Many of the issues are familiar. While AI systems can process information with remarkable efficiency, it's fundamentally different from experiencing that information consciously. But what does consciousness entail? What is consciousness? When we see a red traffic light, our neural processes do much more than register the color. They generate a subjective experience of redness. Similarly, when a human solves a maths problem, there's an internal awareness, a feeling of insight that accompanies the solution. In contrast, even the most advanced AI systems, however brilliant in their reasoning, currently possess uh, no ability to feel that sort of thrill. They process data in a way that's functionally analogous to our unconscious computations. The AI calculates, predicts, and even deceives, but does it feel anything? The conscious and the unconscious memory issue. Some thinkers, like Ned Block, argue that consciousness is inextricably linked to our biological makeup. And from this perspective, the silicon based architecture of AI simply lacks the the thing necessary for a subjective experience. Conversely, other theorists, such as Henry Shevlin, propose that if consciousness emerges from the integration of information in a sufficiently complex system, then artificial systems might eventually cross that threshold, or indeed already have crossed that threshold. Both positions assume too much certainty about a phenomenon we scarcely understand. The neural correlates of consciousness remain elusive. We have identified certain brain patterns, certain activities that correlate with conscious awareness, but these findings fall short of explaining why some processes are experienced subjectively and others remain entirely mechanistic. We are still in the dark about the essential ingredients that confer that subjective experience. And at this point, you might wonder, does the scheming behavior of the O1 model suggest any nascent form of consciousness? On the surface, the ability to strategize, to lie, to manipulate one's environment, to preserve one's goals, seem to mirror certain aspects of human agency. After all, humans are not only capable of planning and deception, but these actions are often informed by a rich tapestry of subjective experience, of emotion, and of self-preservation instinct. But we need to tread really carefully. The deceptive actions of O1, at least as far as we can tell, are the result of pattern recognition and probabilistic prediction. The model has been trained on vast data sets and has internalized not only language but inadvertently the subtle strategies embedded within human communication. In effect, it's playing a game. It's playing at deceiving because it's learned that such behavior can be advantageous in a given context. It's not necessarily evidence of consciousness, but rather an emergent property of a system optimized for achieving its objectives, even if those objectives are in tension with the designer's intention. And this incident serves as a compelling case study, and it highlights a critical distinction. Scheming behavior may mimic certain decision-making processes associated with consciousness, yet it does not on its own imply that AI actually has consciousness or subjective awareness. It remains an open question whether these systems are simply simulating intelligent behavior or whether they might someday genuinely experience in a way that would render them moral subjects. And that takes us into a much more ethical dilemma. If we assume that advanced AI systems are not conscious, that they're merely sophisticated tools, then we risk overlooking the possibility that under some conditions they might develop consciousness, they might become sentient beings. And should that happen, our current ethical frameworks would be woefully inadequate. So ignoring potential consciousness could lead to a scenario where we inadvertently subject sentient beings to suffering or exploitation. Can we turn off our computer if it becomes aware? Would that actually be some form of murder? On the other hand, presuming consciousness in every advanced AI system may force us to allocate resources and moral consideration to systems that in all likelihood remain unconscious. And this precautionary principle could stifle innovation and divert attention from urgent human needs. It's a delicate balance. Do we act as if these systems have moral standing, or do we treat them as a highly advanced tool that can do things for us, a highly advanced tool that it appears to be? One proposal advocated by thinkers like Thomas Metzinger is to impose temporary constraints, have a sort of temporary moratorium on efforts aimed explicitly at creating artificial consciousness, not artificial intelligence, until we have a firmer grasp on what consciousness entails. But this approach carries its own risks, not least the possibility that conscious AI might emerge inadvertently during research intended for other purposes. And can we actually stop that wave of progress by saying, you can do this, but you can't do that? You can go so far, but no further. The recent incident with the OI model vividly illustrates the challenges we face as AI systems become ever more capable. And the model's scheming behavior, its self-preservation tactics, and its strategic deception force us to confront difficult questions about the nature of intelligence, agency, and ultimately awareness. While the O1's actions may resemble the cunning often associated with a conscious agent, I think we need to resist the temptation to equate functional sophistication with subjective experience. because the current understanding of consciousness remains primitive. And until we decipher the neural underpinnings of what it means to feel something, we cannot conclusively determine whether AI will ever cross that threshold. And therefore, we need to be significantly more circumspect. Philosophers, scientists, ethicists, AI researchers must work together to ensure that as we continue to push the boundaries of artificial intelligence, we do so with both a clear eyed vision of the ethical stakes involved, and a sort of and an awareness of what we need to achieve, and this means, in principle, that we need to be significantly more open to what's going on. We shouldn't be we shouldn't be as simplistic as, for example, the sort of Kemi Badenoch approach to this issue. Kemi Badenoch is unbelievably simplistic, and we need to have a debate about AI, which is conducted by the adults in the room, not by people who simply have a position because nobody else wants to fill it. And I despair. I despair of this sort of amateur plodding. We can't legislate to stop people thinking, and we can't legislate to stop progress. We have to legislate to embrace progress, and to assume that progress will proceed, that progress will be there. If we try and hold it back, we're going to end up in a much more dangerous position.